We are here today with Bree, another one of our amazing authors, part of the interview series. And let's just start with you telling us a bit about yourself.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Bri Benomo. I often have people butcher my last name because there's a U in there that's silent. But I have been on like Authortube and BookTube since 2019. I've been writing fantasy and sci-fi and horror and poetry for pretty much my entire life, but more seriously since 2011. And Reaper, it was my first major publication, I would say, like aside from like school publications when I was in college.
Oh, cool. And what inspired you to submit that story to us?
So when I just mentioned, writing in college and my first really trying to write stuff for publication, I want to say it was like 2011 or 2012. I was in a class where my professor was terrible.
Oh, no.
And the only good thing about it was like he let our imaginations run. Basically, the class was kind of supposed to be a flash fiction class, but he didn't run it in any sort of way.
Okay.
So the only parameters was write 2 pages of a short story and submit it one a week. And I originally wrote Reaper for that class, but
Okay, cool.
it was 2 pages and it was terrible
Oh, no.
because it was just there was no substance to it. You know what I mean? Like there was
Mhm,
no direction. And I always wanted to go back to that story and actually make it worthwhile.
mhm.
But 10 years or so passed and I just had no desire to do it. And when I got the email from you, I initially was just going to write it off and not even consider it. But then that story just kind of buzzed around in my mind again, like, oh, you know what? Like, that's kind of like a horror, like a psychological horror story, and it might fit. So I just decided to rewrite it.
Well, I'm very glad that the Stygian Collection became the platform for you to finally finish that story, and it is a really good one. It fits perfectly into the collection, especially, I mean, with the theme of
Mm-hmm.
Hellish, and you have the boatman Karen and
Mm-hmm.
Reaper. Like it's a perfect fit for sure. And when I saw that, I was like, this is exactly the kind of thing we're looking for. Without giving too much away, you have
Mm-hmm.
that Reaper, of course, element and
Mm-hmm.
and sort of an ethical discussion, which brings in the philosophical element
Mm-hmm.
that what would you do question.
Yeah.
So with that being said, do you want to talk a little bit about the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I truthfully, like, if you're gonna ask me like where the idea came from, I don't know. I just have a morbid mind, I think.
I
Uh,
understand. I relate.
um, it's just one of those things. I think in the class where I originally wrote these stories, all of my stories were like in my way. Not saying they were good, but like I always try to twist like the tropes.
Mm,
So that question of if you could, would you, and how would you actually feel
yeah.
is what prompted that story. So basically, you have a woman who is mourning the almost loss of her fiance who is on his deathbed, and the question of if I could trade places, how would that go?
hmm I think it's such a human question too, right? Because we're all going to we either have or we're probably, we're going to wind up asking ourselves that
Mm-hmm.
kind of question, which makes it such a great piece, just that relatability of it,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes you go there. It makes you go, oh yeah, like either I remember this or what about when this happens to me?
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to go and how is that going to play out? So it really does make you think.
Absolutely. And I'm glad it does because that was my intention.
Well, you did it properly. One of the things that brings us all to this collection is posting on Authortube, BookTube, and you did mention how you've been on since 2019. What themes and topics do you usually explore on your channel, and do they relate to this type of writing, short stories or darker elements?
Yeah, so I would say probably a myriad of things that I love to talk about on my channel. And when I started, which like I said was 2019, I was actually like a prompt. I want to say I started in September because we were prepping for NaNoWriMo.
Okay.
And my NaNoWriMo group, because I had just joined it in 2018, and I always wanted to do YouTube, but I had no idea what I could be on YouTube. I had many failed attempts that are now forever privated, but I started out doing mostly NaNoWriMo content, vlogging, and just kind of trying to feel my way. But I also have a master's in psychology. So some of those darker elements, but also just in general, like how we question things and um, just debates on like bunch of stuff I love to include as well. So I don't have like a great answer or like just one thing, but I do like to talk about my process in writing. I've been writing more short stories this entire month for Camp Nano. So I've been
Mhm.
vlogging that and those experiences. I did vlogs in, I think the last 2 Aprils or this past April, maybe 2 Aprils ago, where I did a poem every day. So I just kind of like to just chat about where these ideas come from, what I'm thinking about, and just kind of sharing the process. So maybe other people aren't feeling alone, because I do think writing can be so solitary. And if you don't have people around you in your day-to-day life, it can be, like you can go out of your mind just being like, am I doing this right? How is this going? How do we actually edit?
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. I started my channel much in the same way, but I was one of the pandemic joiners.
Hmm.
I'd wanted to do that for ages. And then in 2020, my office, we all started working from home, and I was like, all
Hmm.
right, I don't have the morning or evening commute anymore. I can do things on my lunch break other than just, go sit in the lunchroom and
Hmm.
eat and, maybe read. So I have this extra time. I have to do something with it, and this is going to be it. And NaNoWriMo helped spur that on because it was right. I don't remember the timeline, but I do know that my first video came out, I think, early October. So I just started with Preptober and I jumped right
Yeah.
in. And Authortube is such a cool community because you do have that element where your channel doesn't have to be so focused on one
Hmm.
thing, and it can
Exactly.
inspire people in a variety of ways. And I think bringing in that psychological aspect is great as well, especially for
Mhm.
writers, because I mean, we have to analyze people all the time. So
Yeah.
being able to discuss that in tandem with writing is very useful.
Mhm. I agree. And that's like my bio often includes the fact that like I do mental health counseling, and I like to use those experiences to kind of enhance my writing.
Yeah, I believe that would just be an incredible well to be able to
Hmm.
tap, I think. I just get to do that from a distance by watching, weird analyses of people
Yeah.
and crime stories and stuff like that. But
Yeah. I
I'm
also like
definitely
that too.
fascinated.
So
It's good stuff.
it is.
So as a creator on YouTube, how do you balance the demands of creating videos and also writing? And for anyone else who's trying to do this, do you have any
Mhm.
advice in that area?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily advice, but I'm pretty blunt about this on my channel that YouTube is like fourth on my list of things that have to come. My job and my, relationship is probably the top two things that I need to focus on, because my job is very demanding. And then third would be writing, because I'm not a full-time author. I only have one publication, so it's not gonna, hold me up.
Hmm.
But YouTube ends up being, in social media in general, probably like fourth. If I have time for it and I have the energy for it, I film. And it's kind of like a nice little gift to myself as well as people who follow me when I am. But if I don't have it in me, I just don't do it, because otherwise I end up sacrificing my writing time to film and edit, and it's a big process. So it's just kind of, I think, where your priorities lie.
Hmm.
And it's like if you are, I guess, going to be having the goal of being a content creator, then that priority might be higher. But for me,
Yep.
it's just to share and have a community. And that just means, I would hope that my subscribers respect that when I need to take a break, or if I don't pop up here and there. And I don't think anyone has ever been offended if I, took 4 months off for a mental health break.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And yeah, it can be hard once you start putting stuff out on YouTube to find that perfect balance, right? Because
Yeah.
I remember when, I don't know if it was like this for you, but when I first started, I did get pulled into that sort
Yes.
of algorithm trap a little bit where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, no, but I have to have this video out at the same time
Mhm.
every week. Otherwise, like everything's gonna fall apart. So I started, I remember this time period where I was focusing more on that. And I realized like, okay, I'm talking about writing, but how much writing am I actually doing? And I had
Yes,
to just pull back and reevaluate. All right, this has to be a side element of my life that supports my more prominent things that I'm
exactly.
doing. So I think especially as a writer, you want to be aware of like, okay, how much am I talking about this and
Mhm.
spending time making videos and editing versus how much time am I actually putting into my writing? And you want to
Exactly.
be putting more time into writing, I would agree.
Yeah, yeah. For me too, even though I joined like the year before the pandemic really hit hard,
Mhm.
the pandemic for me was not necessarily in the beginning. The beginning hit me very hard, but then like as I kind of found the YouTube community more, I started like really going gung ho. So I was streaming all the time, multiple times a week. I was posting 2 videos a week.
Yeah.
And it was great for the time because it gave me something kind of like a purpose when life was terrifying and we had no idea when it was going to end. So it was really nice. And similarly, I kind of got in that algorithm trap of like, oh, like if I have this, people are going to be expecting it. And
Yeah.
then when I went back to reality in 2021, I went back to grad school because I had to complete some extra classes in order to get licensed as a counselor. I
Mm.
was short some credits and an internship. So from 2021 to 2022, I was working full time, doing a full time internship, going to classes, and somehow functioning and writing. So
Yeah.
it was just too much for me to end up
Yeah.
like I could not do 2 videos a week. I couldn't even
No.
stream like once a month most of the time. So I definitely had to reevaluate what YouTube, like where that fit into my life. And then I just kind of now post. My goal is normally 2 videos a month and a live stream. If it doesn't happen, I don't beat myself up.
Yeah, that's good. I think for anyone who did go through the pandemic with YouTube, it became kind of a lifeline, right? To
Yes.
have that community and then you have to readjust and go, okay, well, this
Hmm.
is not quite as crucial as it was during
Hmm.
that time period.
Exactly.
And probably for people who are just watching and not creating, they probably had this golden age of all this
Oh
content
my
all the
God,
time, and
there's
now
so much
suddenly,
content. Yes.
and
And then
now suddenly
TikTok
it's just
blew
like,
up too. So like
yeah,
between TikTok and YouTube, there was just yeah, a plethora of new
yeah,
people.
it's interesting to see that whole boom, and then to see, okay, who's going to stick around, and what's it
Hmm.
going to be like now? What's this landscape going to be? There's definitely been an evolution.
It has. Yeah, I agree.
So, looking back at your story again, do you have any anecdotes or memorable experiences related to the process of, well, I would say writing it, but I think given what you've said, anecdotes relating to going back to this old piece and reworking it in a way that you appreciate now?
Hmm. Yeah, I already kind of said that like part of it was the fact that it was, this weird story that I wrote that was only 2 pages originally in
Hmm.
my one class. Like that was like the biggest anecdote, I think. But I think it was just interesting like how my brain like worked to actually get myself to submit because probably little did you know, I actually made a goal that I was going to submit short stories this year.
Oh,
Like that
cool.
was my 2023 goal. So when I actually, it went into spam. So I didn't get it for a few days. I know.
Bane of my existence these
Yes.
past months.
But thankfully, I am neurotic and I always check my spam at least once a week. So I got it a few days later. And initially, I was like, it's a hoax or it's
Yeah,
not. I kind of went through the whole process of like,
especially
this
when
is
you have the
probably,
spam.
yes, like it's probably nothing major. And then that's when I was sitting and thinking about it. And I'm like, I mean, what's the harm in if I submit it? Like I get rejected, I get rejected, and that's fine. So I kind of went back and forth, and then I talked to my one writer friend who's also like we co-write a lot together, and she was just like, "Well, yeah, like why not?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have anything to write." And then I was like, "Well, maybe I could go back to some of those stories." I did say that I wanted to do that this year, and I wanted to get back into short story writing, and that was just kind of like, it was very very meandering the entire month of January. And
Hmm.
then finally February came around and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I literally had like rewrote that thing and edited it and did the whole process within a month
Oh,
in order to
awesome.
submit. So I really do have to give my writer friends credit. I'm probably gonna miss people, but I know like Sarah, Autumn, Kate, and maybe Kayla, they were great because without them, I don't think I would have had it nearly as polished. They were really good with editing, both like
Cool.
developmental and line editing, and just catching those little things that didn't make sense. So I think without them, I definitely would not have submitted it.
Well, thank you to them as well then. I'm so glad you submitted this piece. Um, and it's always interesting when you go back to older stuff
Mhm.
and revisit it and have it evolve. Like I'm in the thick of a big project like that right now. So I think
Mhm.
it's kind of cool when you can pull on those old concepts.
Yes, yeah. And I think too, like this, I want to say maybe it was last year, I was thinking back to this story because somebody had asked like what your goals are, like as like an author and not, or I should say dreams. What are your dreams as an author, right? It might have been 2 years ago now. And I want to write a story that's like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab.
Oh, I
You
know that name.
Yeah, or Victoria Schwab.
Okay.
Darker Shade of Magic trilogy.
Okay.
Very, very big in the writing world now.
Yeah.
But I adore V.E. Schwab and I love her writing style, even if some of her books don't land the same with me. But Addie LaRue is like my favorite story. And I'm not gonna say that I am on the level of V.E. Schwab, but I do think if you like Addie LaRue, then my short story is a good like fit. And
Okay.
I was telling somebody that like Reaper, if I wanted to make a bigger like book out of it, like I want it to be in that style where it's kind of like this fantasy, but like this much more of like a character study rather than like a big plot and like big adventure.
A bit more like in the magic realism direction,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Where it's an element, but in a more real world.
Yes. Yeah. Because
Okay,
I
cool.
would love to follow like a Reaper, like from the time that they committed to it to like how and why they made the
Mhm.
decisions and like watching all of these lives around them.
It is a great concept.
Mhm.
Have you ever watched Dead Like Me?
No, but I've heard it's one of those things that get pitched to me a lot, and
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of TV.
Well, if you do decide to watch something, I highly
Mhm.
recommend that. I watched it when it was still on, so a very long
Mhm.
time ago now, but it's one I would go back and watch. And I think if
Mhm.
you do want to explore that kind of topic more, it could be very good, either inspiration or to at least be aware of some other people who have tackled a similar concept. So
Yeah,
it is very good. It's a lot of fun,
good.
and
I will add
I
that
love
to
that
my
idea.
list that grows all the time.
And yeah, everyone that I talk to through these interviews, I'm always making mental notes, and I have like Addie LaRue on here. Like, okay, I
Mhm.
have to check this. And when I finish them, I think I'm just going to go back and rewatch every interview and just make all my notes about the
There you go.
videos and the books I need to look into. It's
Yes.
been great. Another thing that's come up in common is this sort
Mhm.
of stars aligned type situation, like with your
Mhm.
goal for submitting short stories. I think there are maybe only two authors in the collection so far who haven't had a story that was like, well, I was just thinking this, and then your email showed up. And I think that's my favorite thread that has appeared
Mhm.
so far, how we all had this almost like this kismet thing happen,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Hmm.
Speaking of, the multiple people in this anthology, we have like
Hmm.
24 creators, I think.
Hmm.
How have you felt being a part of an anthology that features the works of other YouTube creators?
I just love it. I think the biggest thing too is I only vaguely knew of one creator. So
Okay.
truthfully, like I have gotten so many new like subscriptions to follow now, and it's just wild to me that like I think we get so sucked into like the big names in Authortube who are
Hmm.
great and they were staples, but like it just shows me that like I don't know everybody on the platform and so many people go under the radar and you don't get to experience the joys that they bring and like the uniqueness. So just kind of being able to see new ways of interacting people and then also getting to see actually something they wrote because I think there's from what I see occasionally on like the negative commentary of Authortube
Mm,
is that either we never see people being published
right.
or they're lackluster when they're published. And
Yeah.
you know, I've definitely heard that negative feedback occasionally, but it is kind of cool to see like actually like, oh, these are really good stories. And it is, you know, it's not just the big names, you know, out there that can have creativity and being able to showcase their talent. So it's just really cool to be able to see um just the works.
Yeah, I agree. Every point that you made, it's funny because when we were researching
Mhm,
and finding people, because God, I have to look at my list, but I think I sent out quite a few emails
mhm,
because there were different layers to my research, right? And like the approval
mhm,
process. Like I was trying to look through all of AuthorTube, which at first
mhm.
I thought was quite a bit smaller than I found out it was.
Yeah.
I knew that BookTube was big and that
Mhm.
it was to the point where, there's infighting and drama and all that
Yeah.
and like any big community has. But
Mhm,
AuthorTube always seemed a lot sort of smaller and
mhm.
quieter to me. And in a lot of ways it is, but it's very big. Like I
Yeah.
looked through hundreds of people and then I boiled it down to maybe 100 people who I actually sent emails to. And
Mhm,
then there was, receiving responses and stuff like that. And then we boiled it down to these creators who, um, all this to say, like one of our main things was that we were not going to look at subscriber count.
mhm.
Even though it was a, AuthorTube promo and AuthorTube community, we didn't want to go, okay, let's look at subscribers because that
Sure.
doesn't necessarily say that your work is the best,
Mhm,
because you do see that with some bigger names where people are disappointed
mhm.
when it comes out, unfortunately. And I think a lot of really talented people get overlooked on
Yeah.
AuthorTube. And it's too bad because, like, maybe they're just a little off in the algorithm. They're a little odd. They're not
Mhm,
everyone's cup of tea. But by trying to bring some people forward, I am
mhm,
hoping that it encourages, other author tubers as well as viewers to delve a little deeper and look around
mhm.
and find those creators who maybe don't have, thousands and thousands of followers, because it's worth looking into.
I agree. And sometimes like there really are just gems like that you would not have seen if there wasn't something that kind of boosted them, you know?
Mhm.
So I think this collection is like a perfect way to do that because I don't think many of us have much more than 1,000, or a couple thousand at that.
I think because I look sort of at everyone as an overview, because I have spreadsheets and I have
Hmm.
everyone's like social and their
Yeah.
channels and stuff. I think our biggest subscriber count is like 6,500 or something, or
Yeah.
like
Which is
I
pretty
think.
good in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm still under 1K, so
Yeah.
but I think we're all under 10K if I'm correct.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm glad to give that spotlight because that's
Hmm.
what I want to do. That's the whole point of Stygian, is to dig up really good talent and give
Hmm.
people the spotlight that they deserve. So I hope we
Yeah.
can continue
And
to
I
do
love
that.
that.
What are your hopes and expectations for the collection now that it has gone out in the world, and how it will be received by readers and your followers?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I hope that everybody enjoys it. You know, I think with any kind of anthology, you're going to have stories that are hit or miss. I think, you know, even when you want to love everything, I've read I love short story collections and I still find ones that I'm like, this isn't my fave.
Yeah.
And I subscribe to like magazines and stuff like that. And I'll be like, everything was good except this one story.
Yeah.
Just, you know, but obviously they're chosen because somebody found the potential in them. So if it might not jive with me, it might jive with somebody else and,
Mhm.
you know, so on. So I'm just hoping that people are going to enjoy them, maybe follow everybody, or just keep a lookout for you know, what else is going to be published, not just by the creators, but also through Stygian. So I don't know, I'm just very hopeful. I know that people in my personal life who have already read, like, because of course, you know, I think people are going to immediately go to who you
Oh
know
yeah. Yeah, of
and read
course.
that. So people like on day one, like I got, you know, my sister-in-law was texting me, I just read your story. I'm like, I
Oh.
just woke up. Like, what do you mean?
How, how, yeah.
Yeah. So like
I,
it's just surreal. But yeah, I'm very hopeful, and I am very like proud of everybody and myself for publishing, and I'm excited to see where everybody else goes.
Mhm.
And on a personal note too, I do have on this coming Monday on the 31st, I
Oh,
have my
yes.
like first author event.
Yeah, I wanted to talk
Um,
about that.
yeah, but it is just like crazy to me because like I already got asked like, well, are you selling copies there?
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, how many people are coming? Like
Uh-oh.
I
Do we
really
have
was it.
enough?
I don't know. I really don't because I was just expecting like my family and friends, like maybe 10 people to show up, but like
Hmm.
it doesn't sound like that. So I have no idea. I may be surprised or I may be underwhelmed, but I'm just excited and I made bookmarks. So hopefully that if I do run out of copies, which obviously that's a plus. I
Hmm.
have little bookmarks with the QR code that they can
Oh,
just scan
perfect.
then. And so, yeah, I went a little bit. I don't have them. They're off camera right now, but I should have brought them to
No.
show. But yeah, so I'm just excited to be promoting it as well. And I'm
And
hoping that people who might not know me personally will also then want to pick it up. And the same thing for my subscribers. Hopefully if they couldn't afford it now, maybe in the future they can, or they can get a copy of the ebook
mhm.
and, can just support everybody.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mhm.
And I was going to say thank you because you have really gone above and beyond with promotion and bringing people in to see the project. So it's really, really appreciated. And
Absolutely. Yes.
it's so cool that you're doing this event too. Because I mean, we put it out there like we'll support anything that people are
Hmm.
doing, of course. And I know that there are other people who are interested, but are not quite sure how to organize it. So it's great to see this coming forward, and maybe it can inspire our
Hmm.
other authors to do something too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and did the stickers reach you?
Yes, they did.
Oh, good, good, good.
I did
Because
get them.
that's
They're
some
all cut
stickers.
up and ready to be passed out.
Awesome.
Yes.
Lori actually is our artist for anyone who does not know. She is doing a market on August 12th and 13th in Montreal, and she's got some books, so she's going to be showing them off there. So that'll
Awesome.
be a whole different audience to take a look at
Hmm.
things, which will be really cool.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I've
And I mean, I will just say too, for anybody like who's in the Stygian collection, local businesses, like small businesses are literally, I think, the key
mm,
because that's what I'm doing is I'm partnering with a local business that I run a writing group at. And they were very gracious to let me do a free community event there, like no payments. And then similarly, I go to a coffee shop all the time, and they're like a coffee shop that also has like boutiques. So like local
okay.
artists and everything can put stuff in there. And I haven't asked them yet because I don't know how many bookmarks I'm going to have left, but I was going to drop in and I don't think they're going to have any issue of me just leaving free bookmarks that people then can pick up and scan or,
Mhm.
search my name or something. Because I made sure I Googled myself to make sure that Bri Benomo Reaper comes up. And the first thing that comes up is Stygian.
Oh,
So
perfect.
people can just Google it and, hopefully that'll also bring in more traction. But local businesses are honestly great because, they want more people to come in and they want the promotion. So more often than not, they're going to be willing to work with you.
Yeah, and as an indie creator, community is
Mhm.
everything. You need your local community, you need your online community, um, and that might even be a good video to do to talk about
Yeah.
how to set up your your reader
Yeah,
event
that's
for
actually a
people
good
who might
idea.
not
I
be
didn't
sure.
think about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to be doing photo and video and
Hmm.
stuff on the 31st. So yeah, you
Hmm.
should incorporate that with a little bit of a how-to for other people because I have an event planning history, but I know that not everyone does, so it
Hmm.
can be difficult. Like, how do I put myself out there? Where do I
Hmm.
start? Who's going to let me just take over their store and let me
Hmm.
read? And I think people would be surprised that it is easier
Hmm.
than you might think if you find the right businesses and the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to see how it goes. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited too.
In your opinion, how does you do a variety of things like you know the like you're putting out videos,
Mhm.
you're working your day job, you're writing. How does the act of writing for a publication, writing this short story, differ from your usual creative process? How has this whole thing been different than what you usually do?
Well, I think in, simple terms, there's more deadlines.
Yeah.
Like having to actually have like writing for a goal versus like I'm writing with a goal in mind, but there's no like tangible things because, you know, I have on here how I have like, I'll just pull it off my own deadline of August 30th. I'm
Mhm.
not going to make that. I know I'm
Yeah.
not. So I just keep, you know how often that deadline has changed? Originally that was February. So it
Sticky
moved.
notes are great for that. So,
Yes.
a new one.
Yes. But that's because personal life got in the way and it's
Yeah.
not something that I'm really needing to accomplish. It's obviously a goal. Like I do want to finish my one dark fantasy book and start going out into queries with that as well. But life gets in the way and that doesn't always happen. So just kind of reprioritizing, you know, okay, I'm going to put off my dark fantasy book for now to focus on this because I have a deadline and I have edits that are doing and just kind of, you know, going with that it's just a different mindset of, you know, okay, I have to do this and I need to work through writer's block or I need
Mhm.
to say I can't go out tonight because I
Yeah.
have a deadline.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That solid deadline is very different from
Mhm.
the soft deadlines that we try to set for ourselves normally.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm writing another short story currently that is the submission is on August 1st. So
Okay.
similarly, I am trying to you know, I was really, really pushing the envelope with my critique partners. I'm like, please tell me you have time this week because I finished it last weekend and I'm like, draft one, somebody tell me they can read this. So it's been, you know, also learning process for myself of I can't I have to actually think about when deadlines are and what I need to expect from other people. Cause thank God people pulled through for me, but I, you know, just have to keep that in mind next time that that might not be the case and other people have lives. And I have to, you know, make sure that I am giving enough grace, not just for myself, but for other people. So just, you know, those kind of things to think about. If you
Mhm.
want feedback on something, you can't put it off to the last week.
Yeah, it certainly is an adjustment.
Mhm.
I've been working on our timeline for publications over the next year,
Mhm.
and there's that working in of, okay, but when does the art need to be done? When does the editing
Mhm.
need to be done? Because you can't just think about your deadlines and you have to think about everyone else
Exactly.
who's involved in this, you know, in this process. It's like I need to give them time. I can't just dump this on people.
Yeah, yeah. So I know Stygian's like a little piece of the pie, but it was a good way to kind of conceptualize my hopefully larger career in writing too, because if I do get traditionally published moving forward, those are things I'm going to have to keep in mind. You know, like if I
Yeah.
have editors to work with and agents to work with and publishing companies to work with, it's not just a me thing anymore.
Mhm. I'm glad that we've been able to give you that start.
Mhm. Yes, I
And
appreciate it.
I'm also glad to hear you are writing more short stories because you know,
Mhm.
you'd said that you were going to do that this year. So I'll be keeping an eye out for future publications.
Well, thank you. Yes, I have. Honestly, that Stygian has really been that push. I have submitted 3 this year since, well, I've submitted 3. Stygian was the first one, and then I went ahead and I submitted 2 more. They did get rejected. The one I got confirmation that I was in the final pool
Okay.
of people. And then I just submitted one last week for Havoc magazine,
Okay,
which is an
cool.
online publication. And then my next one is due on the 1st, and that is for the first line. So those are both Havoc and First Line are both free to submit to. So they're great resources. And from what I understand in like the larger rating community, like the ones that go to conferences and stuff like that,
Mhm.
they're very good publications to have on your like, kind of like resume. So
Great. Well, I hope that they accept you then. That would be awesome.
thank you. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I worked
And I
hard,
think they
but
should.
yeah, but you know
I
what? I understand too. They're a bigger entity and there's probably more people that get, you know, to submit to them. So if nothing else, it is just more things I have to maybe put out there in future collections or future magazines too.
Yeah, and you always have to keep submitting because you never know
Exactly.
when it's gonna hit. I mean, it can be, you know, it can be annoying when you get those rejections, but
Mhm.
it happens to everyone. You just keep going, keep going. And I mean, you might even be able to submit to the same publication like a year
Exactly.
later, and then
Hmm.
it just that slight change and you're in. So
Exactly.
gotta
Yep.
keep
So
going.
just persevering, essentially. That's what writing is all about.
Yes, exactly. Just suffering for
Yeah.
those moments when it works out.
Yes.
I think this is a good lead into my wrap up, which is simply that are there any other projects or creative endeavors that you're currently working on that you'd like to share with our audience and with the, Stygian community?
Yes. I don't necessarily have anything that is like something everyone can like go out and rally behind necessarily, but I do have a TikTok. I'm at Frantic Fairy, and fairy spelled normally.
And I will link that down
Yeah.
below.
I do tend to post like obviously short form, like kind of little updates and things that I might not include on my YouTube channel. I also love doing like humorous skits. That's
Mhm.
my favorite. So I'm not going to include that on YouTube, but they're nice over there. And so following me up over there would be great. Otherwise, I am waiting on some feedback for my dark fantasy that I mentioned. So I am going to be starting on edits in August for that and hopefully going to be querying. I haven't decided if I'm going to be filming as I go, like I did my second round of querying actually. I didn't have my YouTube when I did querying the first time, but I'm either going to do film as I go and just kind of keep updates, or I might just film on the behind the scenes and
Mhm.
then do a compilation when it's all said and done. I'm not sure. But yeah, so just well wishes for that. And then my friend also sent me that I think it's through Simon and Schuster. They're accepting manuscripts for poetry right now,
Oh,
on
that's
Agent.
exciting.
So yeah, so if
Very
anyone's a
exciting.
poet, I know you write poetry as well.
Yeah.
But I think I know I have like a collection that I've been working on, but I haven't actually compiled it yet. So I might just say to heck with it and get that together and submit that. So it's
Yeah.
entire month of August through the 31st, they're accepting it. I think it was through the 31st or the first 300 they get.
Okay.
So not a huge pool, but
That's a really good
300.
opportunity, though.
Yeah. And I know I also have Instagram and I'm pretty active on Instagram, but I almost always like, try to like post in my stories when I see opportunities. So I try to follow different publishers, different people that share stuff.
Mhm.
And if you're looking for more resources, I think my Instagram is probably a good place for that, because anytime I see anything, I'm like, here we go, get more people to submit or sign up or do this.
That's a really good thing to do for the
Mhm.
community.
Yeah, so if you're interested in more opportunities like that, definitely follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, and I will also attest to the fact that your TikTok is great. It's
Thank
something
you.
that I have had a lot of trouble tackling, and I look at your videos, I'm like, she's doing this right.
I just jumped into it. Like I had like no, and obviously not every video is gonna do well,
Mm.
but I just have fun with it. And if people follow, they follow. I was not my biggest video to date. I just posted a couple weekends ago. Because a lot of people are posting like drink nights or girls like cocktails nights and stuff like that. I was getting a lot of them. So I decided to do that TikTok with Lord of the Rings, because
I was just thinking about that one.
every year we have a Lord of the Rings marathon, me and my couple friends.
I
So we
love
get
it.
together, we make a weekend of it, we watch all the extended versions, and we were like, let's do a cocktail night, because I was hosting this year and I have like I'm the only well, now I'm not, but I was the only person that actually had a full house. Everyone else
Mm.
was in apartments. So I was like, we're gonna do a cocktail night. And then I was like, we're gonna film it. And that's just blown up. I have like almost 1,000 likes, and it's just weird, but also awesome that there's
Well,
so many
it's
nerds.
such a good one. It's so funny,
Thank
like the
you.
timing and everything. I mean, I'm a
Yep.
I'm a big Tolkien fan, so
Yes. Yes. And I obviously am too. I also have a Discord that we're reading through all of Tolkien. So
oh,
we
cool.
just finished The Two Towers right before my Lord of the Rings. Our next one is September. I don't know the date off the top of my head. Second week of September, and we'll be finishing up the trilogy with the Return of the King readathon. So if anyone's interested, I have that also linked on my link tree, I think it is. So
Oh, nice. And I might want to get in on that.
do it. Yeah, you have 2 months to read it. Well, maybe not 2 months anymore. You're like a month and a half.
Yeah. I read all of it fairly recently, but it's one of those series I'm like, I just could keep
Yeah,
reading this over and over and over, especially
yeah.
as someone who's writing epic fantasy. Like I'll
It's
always
such an
revisit that.
inspiration.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I will link everything down below. There's a lot of cool creative stuff going on your various platforms. And I'm looking forward to seeing your launch event on the 31st.
Yes, I will be at
And
least blogging it, if nothing else.
excellent.
Mhm.
And yeah, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It was great talking and hearing about everything you're doing and your process. And
Well, thank
I
you for
hope we'll,
inviting me.
you're welcome. I hope we'll be able to chat again soon.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.